Good afternoon, Stuart Williamson here. Market wrap number 180. I'm here at the helm. This week we review the UK Chancellor's autumn budget. What does it mean for the UK buy-to-let market? 3 headline pieces of information, and then one hidden gem I think a lot of people haven't seen, which we'll cover at the end. Basically we do this every week to try and give some of our time-hungry clients a bit of news on the bite. This week, the Hunt hoax. Chancellor accused of autumn statement con as taxes to hit post-war high. Okay, this week we had the autumn statement, which used to be just an autumn information thing, but now it's a full-on statement. It's a budget. Jeremy Hunt has been accused of hoodwinking voters in his autumn statement because it unravelled within minutes from delivering it. The Chancellor had boasted that he had announced some of the best cuts ever, 120 cuts I think it was, in tax. He reduced the national insurance rate paid by workers from 12 to 10%, very good, while also unveiling lots of other cuts to business taxes. But the Independent Office of Budget Responsibility, its own assessment of the Chancellor's plans, revealed that while overall tax burden has come down, and I think I'm just going to read here to make sure I've got it right, overall tax burden has come down, it's still the highest at 37.3% of gross domestic product in 2028 than it has been since the Second World War. Basically, the OBR says tax changes in this autumn statement reduce the tax burden by 0.7% of GDP, but it still rises, it still goes on to keep on raising it every year going forward. Income tax increases explain most of the increase in the forecast, driven by threshold freezes and strong nominal earnings. Basically, more people are getting sucked into the higher tax thresholds, and that's just got a fiscal drag, as they call it. As a result, the Treasury will rake in an extra 201 billion in tax over the next 6 years, 4 times more than the cost of Hunt's cuts to national insurance payments. So it's a bit of a non-cut. The Liberal Democrat leader said this autumn statement was a Hunt hoax. Buried in the small print is a massive stealth tax raid that would drag millions into paying higher rates in the coming years. The British people will be likely to be furious by this deception, as they have been forced to pay the price for conservative chaos through years of unfair tax hikes. So this is the Liberal Party leader saying this. He goes on to say, it's high time that this Conservative government came clean about just how much money they're taking out of the hard-earning families' pockets. The Office of Budget Responsibility also downgraded its forecast for economic growth over the next few years. It said that inflation will fall to 2.8% next year, but it's still 0.9% up on what the forecast was in March. So for the property world, what does it mean? This is what was in there. The mortgage guarantee scheme will be extended until June 2025. 110 million is to be invested in new home developments this year and next to build 40,000 properties. There's going to be a freeze on local housing allowance funds, which basically gives 1.6 million households an increase in the support they can pay for their rental costs. The rumours of stamp duty cuts to kickstart the market didn't come to fruition, but buried in the detail was news that the existing mortgage guarantee scheme would be extended, which is great news. The scheme was first introduced in 2021 with the aim of encouraging lenders to offer 95% loan-to-value mortgages for buyers with a 5% deposit. Mortgages issued under the scheme are backed by the government, meaning if the buyer defaults, the government will step in to cover some of the shortfall. The scheme was due to end in December, but will now run until the end of 2025 in a bid to continue to help prospective borrowers with smaller deposits buy a home, which is great news because they're the people who really need the love. This part of the report comes from Zoopla. Richard Donnell, who's their executive director, one of their experts, says first-time buyers continue to be a key engine for the housing market. However, they often have to rely on the bank of mum and dad. Although first-time buyers get a lot of support through stamp duty relief, the big hurdles remain having the income needed to afford a mortgage alongside the raising of a deposit. By extending the mortgage guarantee, this will help some buyers struggling to borrow for their first property. So it's positive that they're doing that, but it's a sticking plaster approach really, is it not? Mr. Donald goes on to say, in the last 2 years since the scheme started, it's been used by 37,800 households, 86% of whom are first-time buyers. This equates to about 5% of the first-time buyers using a mortgage to buy a home between April 21 and May 23. However, in comparison, the Help to Buy equity loan scheme was more generous. So that's the second scheme, helping 387,200 buyers since it started a decade ago, 85% of which were first-time buyers. This scheme helped around 1 in 10 first-time buyers using a mortgage. Mr. Donald says, with this in mind, the key to extension of the mortgage guarantee scheme will be improving its affordability and appeal for first-time buyers. In general news, the national living wage increased and national insurance was cut. The Chancellor also focused on boosting incomes for households, which in turn could help to improve housing affordability. So the less you've got going out on other things, the more you can afford on mortgages, and to make it more affordable for you to buy. An increase in the national living wage, therefore, was unveiled alongside this cut for both employees and self-employed people, helping put more money back in people's pockets, help affordability. The news will be welcomed by many as household budgets continue to be squeezed thanks to the ongoing cost of living crisis. This, alongside high mortgage rates, have added further pressure to first-time buyers and home movers, which is what's caused transaction levels and house prices to stutter, not to go forward, and in some cases to slump in the higher areas like the south of England and the south coast. Inflation is set to hit a 2% target in 2025, improving affordability again. With the Bank of England projecting inflation to fall, mortgage rates are expected to fall faster than previously discussed. As I said last week, we expect to see them occurring by June 24, which would lead to a rise in house sales. Mr. Donald says the most important focus for government should be deploying policies that help support the reduction in borrowing costs for all buyer groups. This needs to be supported by boosting housing supply through new house building and more support for affordable housing schemes to help those on all incomes. 110 million to boost new home supply on house building planning applications. That's the basic, what they've done. That's 40,000 new homes. That's not a great deal, in the bigger picture, is it? He's also promised to invest 32 million to bust the planning backlog and develop new housing in cities such as Cambridge, London and Leeds. His actual quote was bust the planning backlog and develop fantastic new housing quarters in Cambridge, London and Leeds, which will lead to many thousands of additional dwellings, as well as allocating 450 million to local authority housing funds to deliver 2,400 new homes for Afghan refugees and ease homeless pressures. This is a massive cutback on the construction targets set even by Kwasi Kwarteng in his budget in 2022. The challenges facing the building industry are closing down of the Help to Buy scheme. In October last year, it's removed a significant cash injection to developers. High mortgage costs have hit the buyer affordability. So therefore, did these changes go far enough to meaningfully change anything? Personally, I don't think so. The Outra senior advisor and former Crest Nicholson managing director Tom Nicholson said, hearing the Chancellor address the planning backlog today was somewhat promising, but we need to see the meat in the sandwich to verify its genuine reform. The housing crisis isn't just about numbers, it's about overcoming systematic hurdles. The persistent planning backlog stalls meeting housing needs. We must bridge intentions with actions for tangible change. He also talked about nutrient neutral housing schemes. He's going to put 592 million towards these nutrient housing schemes. What they are, I'm not entirely sure. I'll be interested to find out what a nutrient housing scheme is. In rental news, local housing allowance rates, which is basically how much you get when renting from a private landlord on an LHA basis, they've been frozen since 2020. This increase from the government has been given to families, which basically means they can afford better properties to live in if they're on that local housing association scheme, which is fantastic. Now, what is the biggest change that they didn't really talk about a lot that's going to be big going forward that was in the budget but not very much seen? Okay, Michael Gove changed the PDR rules to allow more commercial conversions and so help the struggling commercial market as of starting next year in 2024. However, the major change for us that came out in this budget is a subdivision of residential property allowance, which is where approval can be given to convert single dwelling properties to 2 flats as long as the exterior of the property is not effective. Now this will have a huge boost in the above national average house price areas, such as many parts of the Midlands, the North, South East and South West, and it's a great investment opportunity for us as investors. Why? Because firstly, you can buy a £300,000 property and convert it into 2-bed flats, 2-bed flats. That'll be giving you a chance to look at a £450,000 price tag. It'll put more stock in the marketplace because people who didn't want to move and downsize can now split their house up into, say, a couple of residences, and so that'll make them want to move, and we won't have this backstop of people not wanting to move and stop the housing market from developing. So here we have 3 examples, one in Greater Manchester, one in Nottingham and one in Bristol, where you can see the sort of thing you could get and convert into a double dwelling property. As you can see, one's got a converted garage, which makes it very easy to have a shared entrance. The other ones have got porches, which are the same. They've got quite a few excess rooms. The best one really is the very large one, this one in Nottingham. Okay, it's in a good location in Sherwood, 300,000 for a 5-bed detached. It's got a good entrance to turn into 2 entrances. It's got 2 baths, 3 receptions and 5 beds. That will be dynamite investment, and that's what we're going to be helping our clients with, finding these sort of investment locations at APW. So although a lot went on and taxes did go up in the budget, and there was a lot of the usual flummery and silliness on behalf of the Chancellor, taxes are increasing, but there are some good opportunities out there. Look at the PDR concept. Okay, buy to let is still good. There are great returns out there. We're getting returns on 10% for some of our clients on a rental basis after a conversion has been done, right down to new builds giving ourselves 7%. So there's good stuff out there. Mortgage rates are coming down. Thank you for listening. That's Market Wrap number 180. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care. Bye bye.